This feels normal. This is like the first episode in a couple of weeks where we haven't had to like set up and tear down and record with a guest.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with that, but sometimes it's good to kick back and do it and phone it in like we usually do.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
No, we don't.
It's weird how, to me, like doing something different just for more than, like, if we do one episode, like, in person, you know, if we'd have done the Bad Pack episode and then the one after we'd been doing this, it wouldn't have been a thing, or like had a guest on one. But if you do it twice, now coming back to this it feels like a little weird to me. It's like if I have like working at the movie theater, you know, my schedules can be kind of random. It's not like a set schedule. It's not like I work Monday through Fridays.
Yeah.
This is, you know, standard like part-time job scheduling where, like, you know, I work a few days a week, but if, say, I miss one day or like 1 day or 1 week I'm scheduled less, and like instead of 3 days before my next shift, it's like 5 days. When I come back that next day, it feels like I've been gone for like a month, even though it's just like a couple extra days. Just like that like little bit of extra time, like, just fucks me up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it like disrupts what you're used to. No, yeah, I mean it's kind of like maybe this is exactly what you just said, but it's like, you know, having, like, there were times like at my other kitchen job where it's like I'd have like a random Thursday off or a Tuesday off. And it's just like the next day I'm like I'm in the weekend mode.
Yeah.
But it's Wednesday. I don't know.
Yeah, kind of that too. Yeah. Yeah, you get just throws off your groove. Even though like often I'll work one day and then have a day off. Or like I'll be subbing or something. Because I work 2 jobs, so I'm like kind of bouncing around normally. But yeah, really, it like that flow gets disturbed at all, and I'm like, like SpongeGar or whatever. Welcome back to There'll Be Duds, ladies and gents. This is episode 141, and I'm your co-host, DJ, and with me as always,
I am Nick.
And as all this feels weird. This flow feels weird.
I feel like I'm supposed to say,
there
and
something
with us
after
today.
That? It shouldn't be so straightforward and to the point. Usually, yeah. But no, it's not. As always, we watched a movie this week, and that movie is The Island of Dr. Moreau, directed by John Frankenheimer, * from 1996. It is based on an H.G. Wells novel about a explorer, something I kind of forget what he is, who is stranded at sea, gets picked up by these people, brought to an island where a long lost like famous doctor is kind of hiding away as a recluse, and he discovers the doctor, like what the doctor's been working on, which is a whole community of these like animal people hybrid creatures. Yeah, it's a very like 90s kind of weird adventure sci-fi fare.
Yeah.
But the more so the reason that I threw it in the cup is for the behind the scenes, all the stuff. That's kind of why I know about this movie. Why I think a lot of people know about it nowadays. I think the movie itself is a cult classic, but it's also like one of those where it's like, yeah, but you gotta know about like what goes on behind the scenes because it's crazy. So I'm sure we'll get to that. We will get to that. I guess I think let's start by because we do tend to go off on tangents, talk about behind the scenes stuff anyways. But let's start simple. Let's start with
like the movie itself.
Yeah,
because when you originally pulled this, I was like, should this be in the dud cup? And I think in some ways it definitely could have fit the criteria, but it's more of like a curiosity. I
for
think. Sure. Because watching it with that in mind, the movie itself seemed pretty weird, pretty out there. But I mean, it didn't seem especially egregiously bad to me like some other stuff. It just seemed like a pretty standard fare, like 90s kind of creature movie. Maybe a little bit too late. Like this is 96. Make it like 10 years prior, and you're in that territory of like The Blob or like those other kinds of like creature movies that are kind of based on. This isn't really based on like a 1950s thing, but it's based on an old story by H.G. Wells, which like those types of stories did get adapted in the 50s and then usually later into the 80s too. So like,
yeah.
all the elements are there, but kind of like The Bad Pack. It's an 80s movie that came out a little bit too late for for its for its intended audience, for its day. That being said, knowing all that weird shit in mind, I did pick up on a lot of like, that was probably Marlon Brando. That was one of his things. I guarantee you that's a thing that he wanted to do, because otherwise, why would they do it that way?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, like the first thing you hear him say is like, he's like, "Is it hot here? Are you hot? I feel very hot."
Don't you feel the heat? As I do. I can't tolerate the sun and what it's doing to me and what it's doing to all of us, of all life on Earth.
It's something like that when he like rolls up on his little like Pope-mobile thing. I was like, why are we talking about this? And then they just kind of move on from that. And I was like, yeah, that's probably just Marlon Brando.
He looked like a Cenobite.
Oh yeah, kind of. Yeah.
What is it? He looked like Butterball.
Yeah.
With his super pale face and his sunglasses.
And the sunglasses. Yeah, like, totally.
He looks like Butterball. He's one of the Hellraiser demons. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the H.G. Wells story. I've never actually read anything from him, but I know like War of the Worlds, The Invisible Man, The Time Machine. He's got like some pretty famous work.
Yeah. Time Machine is the only book of his that I've actually read. Or wait, no, what was one of these? And then yeah. So I've read that, and then I've read those. Do you remember those did you ever read those? They're called like Great Illustrated Classics, and they were kind of like those ones. So we had a few. I have read some of his through that too, because I read The Invisible Man via that.
I think
but they're like shortened versions. I don't think they're
they like comic books?
It's like they're the novels. They're like but I think they're like abridged versions of the novels, and there's like it's not a comic book, but I think every single page has, it's like a double page spread. It's like one side is an image and then the other side is a page of text.
Oh, okay.
But that's like every single page there's a picture.
I got you. The ones that I've read like a couple Edgar Allan Poe stories, but I'm pretty sure they were like comic book-ified.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew the basic plot of this one, that it was like the animal hybrid,
the chimeras, I think is what they're called.
Yeah. But yeah, not too much about it. And I did kind of find myself wondering like what like how the, like in particular the Val Kilmer character felt very like this can't be how, like, sure, you see Dr. Moreau as Marlon Brando and you're like, okay, yeah, that's probably Marlon Brando just doing his thing, but still the character, I can see
he's eccentric. I mean, he plays the character in like this weird kind of oddball way, but also like he's an eccentric doctor who's merging humans and animals. So it's just like, yeah, he's gonna be a weird guy. So like, it's not too far-fetched. But the Montgomery character, who's played by Val Kilmer, is sort of all over the place, where I feel like when he's taking David Thewlis around, he's kind of playing it more straight. And then basically as shit starts going down, the Montgomery character just starts getting really wild and just kind of like wacky.
Yeah.
Like the IMDb trivia of this movie is like a treasure trove of just random weird ass facts. But apparently I think there was one that said that like Val Kilmer there's one part where he just like wanted to wear like a blue armband around his arm, and the director was just like, okay, I guess. Just like he would do shit, and then like, I don't know, it really does seem like he was probably trying to like sabotage the entire thing, which with the documentary that I just watched about it kind of tracks.
Yeah. There's a I will say I remember him, and I kind of rewatched the bit from the documentary Val from a few years ago. Because there's like a little section where he talks about this movie, and of course it's from his perspective, so he could be kind of like painting it in a more positive light for him. But like they talk about how much like him and Brando hated each other, but there's video that he records in because the documentary Val, a lot of it is like home recordings like on Val Kilmer's own like video camera that he would just bring around. And so there's like bits of him like recording, like kind of talking and like joking with Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando's just kind of like sitting, it's like swinging in a hammock, and they're kind of like,
"What's your earliest childhood memory?" Do you have memories from before you could speak?
Big shot. Yeah. Seemingly friendly. So again, it's gonna be more on Val Kilmer's side since it's his own documentary. But there's bits in there where it's like, oh, maybe, I don't know, maybe some of it was kind of bigged up more than it was, or like apparently at like the rap party or something. I think he covers this in Val too, that like at the rap party he found Richard Stanley, who had snuck back onto the set as an extra and been working as an extra, and like apparently like apologized to him of like, you know, the whole like issues and like him getting fired and stuff. So I don't know, you know, there's a lot of like rumors, urban legends, one way or another. I like to think that perspective is true, because it would bum me out to find that like they're just like assholes. And there was all like their personal tragedies too, right? Like,
yes,
because they mention the crazy thing is that they originally had Bruce Willis in there, and then he had to leave because he was getting divorced. And they don't mention this in Lost Soul, but Val Kilmer gets cast, and then he is going through a divorce.
Yes,
during the course of this movie. That's crazy. So like he's dealing with that. Sure, Marlon Brando has his personal tragedy with his daughter, which is awful. But they reference that like prior to the movie that he was on before, he was like awful and like a terrible like person to work with too, and that was before his daughter, you know, killed herself. So like, yes, that is
I think at this point in time,
awful thing.
At this point in time, I think he is like notorious as being like someone who is hard to work with on set.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which I don't know. It's like, yeah.
I was gonna say the like poster child for. I mean, you could say this with how some of the people like talk about Val Kilmer as like poster child for, like big celebrity ego types. Yeah.
It made me think of Prince. I don't know if you've seen that Kevin Smith documentary thing where it's like an evening with Kevin Smith,
yes.
and he's just like telling stories. And there's a story about him working with Prince. Basically, like he asked Prince to like use a song in a movie, and Prince was like, "No, do you want to record a documentary about my album coming out?" And Kevin Smith was like, much like Marlon Brando, like an opportunity to work with Prince. Like, yeah, I want to do it. Sign me up. And then he gets there, and it's like they're in like Minneapolis or some shit. And Prince calls him up and is just like, "I need a camel." And Kevin Smith is like, we're in Minneapolis in the winter. I can't get you a camel. And Prince is just like, "Why not?" Like, just like he does not understand why you can't get this thing for him.
Yeah.
And it's like he's like, Prince has been living in Prince world for quite some time.
Right,
and I think the same can probably apply to Marlon Brando, where he's like, I was in The Godfather, so if I want to have this ice bucket on my head and you're gonna pour water into it, like that's what my character does now. Which is incredible.
Yeah. That I love the I think my favorite bit from that, my favorite like single bit from Lost Soul. I guess for listeners or whatever, there's this feature-length documentary that was made in 2014, I think it was. That's like it's a behind the scenes. So you get a lot of like interviews with people who worked on the movie and stuff. Richard Stanley is in it a lot in particular. And my favorite bit was hearing how there was the one guy who's in Lost Soul, Marco something, who was playing, I forget the character's name, but he's one of the animal people, and he was supposed to kind of be like the sidekick to Dr. Moreau.
Yeah.
And then Marlon Brando sees Nelson De La Rosa, I think is his name.
I think so.
He's like the primordial dwarf actor. And he just like, he thought he was so funny and awesome that he's like, I want that guy in every scene with me.
And then the next thing I heard actually is that he actually did something very similar to Nelson De La Rosa. You're the Spanish actor. Sí, señor. So I do speak some Spanish. Sí, señor. I love this guy. I want this guy in every scene with me, every scene.
And they were like, and like that it was his idea to like make him wear the exact same thing as him and just be, and I was like, that's so fucking awesome. Because I was like, every time it'd be a scene like he's playing piano and he's on like a tiny piano.
It's a smaller piano on top of the piano.
Crazy. And he's wearing the same shit. And then when Moreau dies like halfway through the movie, which was surprising.
Yeah.
Apparently that's how it is in the book though. Is like so it follows the structure of the book, I believe. Then the Nelson De La Rosa's character also disappears, and I just assumed that like, oh, Moreau died, so he died too, because they're like one and the same, right? But then he does show up later on. You see him like at the tail end of the movie.
Because I was gonna say, now that you mention it, I don't remember seeing him again that much after Moreau was killed off.
You really don't. He's right at the end. I think like after the big battle and kind of like the resolution or whatever.
Yeah, it's interesting that this is the result like this movie is the result of an adaptation of a book that I think like kind of deals with some pretty heavy ideas about like man and God and creation and like science. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's interesting that the heavy material turned into like gunfights and explosions and like, man, just again watching the documentary, like all the costumes that those people wore, just like I thought the costumes were actually, I thought it was pretty good. I mean, the practical effects and like the, you know, all the different like sort of chimera mutations that everyone had. Like, oh, I'm the hyena. Oh, I'm, you know, you're a monkey. I don't recall seeing the big-titted pig lady that much.
I only really, for how much she was in that documentary, I only remember her near the beginning because I do distinctly remember a part where there's like a baby like nursing on her. And the fact that like the top set were like her actual boobs, like she just was like on this movie set with her like tits out like the whole time.
Yeah, because it's like
probably felt pretty good. That little breathing room.
Yeah, it's probably knowing how hot it was on that island, she probably was like, oh yeah, this is nice.
Yeah,
but it's like, man, that would be so. I don't know if I would be annoyed by the like taking 3 hours to get all this makeup on, and it's just like you got to sit there with all these other people. Like your tits are just out. Like maybe you know after a while she was just like, yeah, whatever, who cares? We're all in this together. I don't care. But it's like maybe on that first day, the first time that she sat around for like 7 hours with her tits out, and then someone came up to her and was like, we're sorry, Marlon Brando's not coming out of his trailer.
I know.
Like, she'd be like, excuse me?
Yeah. Yeah.
But then I'm sure by like, you know, 2 months into the shooting, she's probably like just walking around with her tits out anyway. Just like, who cares?
Yeah. Yeah, which I'm pretty sure they did. Like, I feel like I remember maybe hearing this before, but the thing of like Val Kilmer wouldn't leave his trailer until Brando left his trailer, and then Brando wouldn't leave his trailer until Val Kilmer left his trailer. Like I had heard about that outside of this movie, because it was such a kind of like notorious thing from it. And I'm pretty sure that is what Community is referencing in the episode, which would make sense because of some kind of tangential things. The episode where they're shooting the commercial for Greendale, which is like it's one of the documentary episodes.
Yes.
And it's actually a spoof of the documentary Heart of Darkness, which is a behind-the-scenes documentary making of Apocalypse Now, which is an adaptation of the book Heart of Darkness, written by Joseph Conrad, which H.G. Wells accused of plagiarizing the Island of Dr. Moreau back in the 1800s. But the part in that is Pierce is like in a trailer, and he like demands a larger trailer, and he won't come out of his trailer until the larger trailer gets there, or something like that. And that's like where he is like the whole episode.
Chevy Chase, another actor that is kind of falls into that territory of like entitled man baby who is like difficult to work with.
Yeah.
But also you didn't follow the rabbit hole deep enough with your comparison there, which Heart of Darkness.
You mean the Stanley thing?
That's crazy.
That was fucking insane. That it's Richard Stanley's great grandfather, I think it was. He was like an explorer.
Who Kurtz was based off of.
Yeah.
Because H.G. Wells thought, H.G. Wells thought that he plagiarized it off of Moreau, and he's like, no, I actually based it off this guy, Stanley. And like, again, with the documentary, I mostly just felt really bad for Richard Stanley. Like the whole time, just like
you can't help it.
Yeah.
I really want like the movie Hardware and
Dust Man or something,
Dust Devil or something like that.
Yeah, Dust Devil.
Those look cool from what clips you got to see.
Yeah.
So I'm really
I was gonna say like we
to
should put Hardware in the cup. I kind of want to see that now.
Okay, yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, you really do. And like, God, you hearing him talk about this, it's like, man, this dude knows his shit. It's like the way that he talks about that source material, it's like, and I'm not saying that if he had done this, it would have been on the same level, but but maybe, I mean, could be, we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be better than what we got if he was able to do it the way that he wanted it. But he talks about it the way that Peter Jackson talks about the Lord of the Rings, like when he's making those, like the like love and like care that he has for the source material.
Yeah.
And like it's like he just knows so much about it and like the context. And he's like, this is what it means. This is like what these characters are. And like you hear it and like, man, you really get a feel for his vision. Which,
I mean, he has like a huge connection to the book. I mean, even like not even including like it being like his great grandfather shit.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like he's like, here's my first edition copy.
Yeah,
of the
that was
Island
crazy
of Dr.
too.
Moreau that my dad had
cool.
on a bookshelf.
Yeah,
it's like
that was so cool.
He is like the guy to direct this movie, and really, it's like a cautionary tale about the Hollywood machine, because that's really what happens. Is just like New Line Cinema was like, oh, we got Paul Thomas Anderson making movies for us, so like we got to get this B movie dickhead out of here and get some real star power, because we got to make money all the time. It's got to be the most profitable thing ever. Yeah. Which
New Line, they did Lord of the Rings. There's another connection there.
Whoa.
Did you catch? I recognize his name from the movie. But did you recognize the one producer?
No.
He was in Lost Soul. Edward Pressman.
That sounds familiar.
He's a producer and also actor in Crime Wave.
Oh,
he's the Trend or whatever, or he's the other one. I forget which. Trend.
Yeah, Ernest Trend.
Yeah.
I gotta look him up now.
I never heard about it. I didn't know that he was going to be at work today. I didn't know about that.
Oh, that's
but
awesome.
Yeah, I recognized his name and then yep, there he is. He was in Lost Soul. And I remember watching like the commentary for Crime Wave a couple months ago, and just how because it's got Bruce on the commentary.
Yeah. And
he makes allusions to the how they, much like Dr. Moreau, were just kind of like shit on by the producers and all that. But Edward Pressman was always kind of like their knight. He always like went to bat for them. And he kind of seems like that guy in this one too, where like there's some producers in Lost Soul where they're like, yeah, Richard Stanley he wasn't cut out for this. They're not as charitable to him. But I felt like Edward Pressman was a lot more like cordial in his like recollection to him. Like he seems like he's one of the good ones. He's one of the good producers.
Yeah, there were a couple of those guys. The one dude that reminded me of like David Carradine. He had kind of like the curly, long-haired mullet. He was like an older guy.
Which one you're talking about.
And then there was like this.
Oh, no, that's Bob Shea. Yeah, he was like the main producer guy for the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. So I'm very familiar with Bob Shea. He's in a couple of those too.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
And then the other guy, the other like kind of talking head guy, who's like wearing a white shirt or whatever. Just listening to them both kind of talk about like, I'm just like, yeah, shut up. You did this. You did this to him. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Just like, I don't know. It was just annoying hearing them talk about Richard Stanley's like shortcomings as a director. And then it's like, it's only because he failed to live to your standard of like, you have to be like super commercial and profitable.
Yeah.
It's just like, this is like the
Yeah,
classic
exactly.
story of, you know, someone who moves to Hollywood, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and it's like, I love movies. I can't wait to make a motion picture. And then, yeah, it's just like the gaping maw of the machine being like, money, money, money.
Yeah. When it's literally like, is that in this case, which I mean, it is probably in most cases, but like, it's very kind of like just bald face. Like that's literally like their reasoning. And like, they don't even try like denying it or hiding it or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the weird things is like, there's the part where Bob Shaye's like, oh, the first thing that kind of keyed me off to him being a little weird is he asked for a coffee and he asked for like 3 or 4 sugars in it. And I was like, that's peculiar. I'm like, is that weird? Like, it's not like he asked for 10, you know, it's more than the average person would get, but it's not like ridiculous.
That doesn't strike me as like a red flag that my movie is going to be bad.
Yeah.
That's such a, And he was like recounting the story, like, like, get a load of this guy, 4 sugars.
Yeah.
Ooh, I don't know how they do coffee where you came from, but you know.
Yeah. There was another, God, this is why you said like I missed the other thing with tying Heart of Darkness back to like Richard Stanley and whatever. There's yet another one, is that and I said this before we watched the documentary and found the thing out about Conrad and H.G. Wells, but it's like Marlon Brando
is Kurtz.
Is Kurtz. He play. I was like, this time I was like, oh yeah, it's Marlon Brando playing a reclusive like famous person in their field who somebody like stumbles upon and finds, and they're kind of like this cult leader sort of thing. And yeah, it's very Colonel Kurtzy. So I mean, you kind of get why retrospectively H.G. Wells was maybe like, hey, that's a little weird.
A little on the nose, then, like, don't you think?
The fact that it's also Marlon Brando in both movies, like 100 years later, is just
it
crazy.
is like perfect, like a perfect circle of Marlon Brando basically starting and ending his career, like playing the same role.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I mean, obviously Marlon Brando was in stuff before Apocalypse Now, but like that's like it's like a full circle. It sucks. I don't know. It's like we're not talking about the movie as much, but also it's.
I know. I still wanted to try, but
it's I don't know.
Sorry, finish what you were saying, but going back to that, there are things that I do have to talk about the movie.
Okay.
But you can finish your thought.
I was just going to say it's hard to, because there is so much of this stuff to talk about, like behind the scenes, where it almost like pales in comparison to like the actual movie itself, which again is bizarre.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I don't know if it would be as famous as it is if it didn't have all of that sort of like backstory, you know.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that is the reason that I included it in the cup. And yeah, like I said, it is. It kind of sucks to think about, like, or to have that kind of hanging over, like, what if Richard Stanley just got to 100%, everything was like exactly like how he had envisioned it, or, you know, as much as like realistically possible, but like Marlon Brando wasn't difficult to work with, and, you know, they all act the way that he did. He got the people that he wanted cast in it instead of like how it ended up working out. Would it be like amazing? I feel like it would. Again, I feel like it would be better than what we got, but it could also, maybe it would just be like one of those mid-90s movies that is just kind of forgotten at this point. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yes, stuff that you actually kind of alluded to earlier that I wanted to talk about, that was like this weird like, just as a movie itself too, just removed from all that other stuff, is very kind of difficult for me to really place like opinion wise, because there's elements like you're saying, like from the book, like elements of the like the nature of man versus beast and like God and that, and there's moments where they touch on it, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of good. This is kind of working. I wish they went farther with this. I wish they kind of they sat on this more. And I feel like that's more like what the book is. Yeah. Which in theory, I feel like is more like what Richard Stanley was trying to do. Like there's the moment where right before Dr. Moreau dies, where there's the hyena who kind of becomes the main antagonist. And the animals, people who have started kind of following him. And Moreau comes in and he's like, oh no, he's like, he's like saying, oh yes, what you're doing is like a way to play, but I'll show you the way that Gershwin plays. And he's like, he would do these kind of leads and whatever. And he starts playing. And then the hyena, like they calm down for a moment. They're kind of like lulled into this, this calm. Their father, the creator, is back. Yeah. And even though they were in there to just kind of like mess shit up, they're there, and he like pets him for a little bit, and he's like down on his knees, and he says,
Father, I must ask a question.
Please.
What am I? I call you father, yet we are not like you. What are we?
That moment like kind of hit. I was like, damn. But then like he kind of responds, but it devolves very quickly into they just eat him. I'm like, oh man, I wish that those bits like that were expanded, because it could be really good. And then like later on when they're kind of ruminating more, like, oh, maybe it's better to live as beasts. You know, people aren't so great either. They're violent. You know, David Thewlis ends it saying that he says I return to the world of man in fear, which that monologue I feel like has to be straight from the book.
Oh, 100%.
It felt very old novel reading.
Or like
a lot of good thoughts in there.
Yeah, or like when he's in that sort of that final confrontation where he's like, "You are all gods, but there can only be one ultra god. Like, who is it?" That seemed like the most like stuff from the book. And like, really, like, you could have had a very thoughtful, intelligent movie. The creature makeups and effects kind of pull you out of it, because there are like people just like snarling and like doing animalistic stuff, and it's like, okay, this is kind of silly. But yeah, like you said, the moment with like the piano where it's like you have this like sort of like philosophical discussion, and Brando doesn't even seem to be really like
too
phoning it in too badly. He seems genuinely interested in what he's saying. Maybe he found some sort of, he's like, oh, okay, this isn't like total dog shit hogwash. Like there's something here for me to like kind of bite into.
Yeah, and the creature makeup, it's like, it's weird because I, like you were saying before, that it's good, and I'm thinking like, yeah, it is good. Like, I think it's solid like makeup work. But at the same time, it's a mixture of like, you can have like, makeup isn't just makeup, right? It's lighting and like the costuming and stuff. It's like with the camera work, and like, you see, if you're familiar with like the first Alien movie, you see the costume that the guy's wearing, and like the guy who played the xenomorph in that, and him walking around. It looks silly. He looks very silly, but the movie, you only see the alien for like a few seconds at a time, and it's always really dark, and it's like, because that movie knows how to show that to make it look real and to make it look scary. This, it's just, you got all these people walking around with all this crazy makeup on, but it's just lit like a TV show. So it just ends up kind of looking like flat and just weird, kind of out of place. But I think if it had a more caring eye than I guess I would say John Frankenheimer seemed to be on this, where he's just like, let's just get this job done. He was looking at it purely as a as a job and not like an artistic thing. If you had it with an eye more like Richard Stanley, and like, God, some of those like artwork, like concept art that he had, like some of those were so fucking cool. Like really cool stuff. I feel like, that's one of those things that I think would probably work a lot better if you had Stanley behind there, who had
like genuinely loved the material and wanted it to be successful, instead of just like, all right, we got Marlon Brando, who is like one of the most famous people of all time, so like we got to cash in on that. Like this, like they were acting like having Brando and Val Kilmer, who was also like kind of at the peak of his career then. Like they were like, okay, who cares who's directing it? We have these two names. This shit is going to print money, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. It literally just came down to that, which is such a bummer.
Man, I don't know. It's also very funny to me, the idea of a ton of people coming together to work on this movie just because they're like, I would do it. If I had an opportunity to work with Marlon Brando.
Exactly.
I would be like, I don't care what it is, I'm going to do it. And then you show up, you show up to set, and it's Marlon Brando and a dude who's 2 feet tall, dressed exactly like him, and he's speaking in a weird accent, and you're like, oh no. Oh no, I don't know that's Marlon Brando? What is he doing?
Yeah.
I'm also surprised that like David Thewlis wasn't mentioned at all in the documentary.
Me too.
There was no word, although I mean, from like the IMDb trivia for him, he also like is pretty much like this. I don't think I think in the trivia he said that he's never seen the full movie, refuses to watch the full movie. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I was thinking that a couple times, that like it would have been, I feel like he had, his own unique perspective as being like the main character and the one who was brought in later than like anyone else.
Yeah.
Like the lead character being brought in like a couple weeks after filming had begun. Like I feel like that he's literally like, he's another Community reference. He's the Troy walking in on the apartment with the pizza boxes and the
yeah, he really is. There's some pretty primo quotes in the IMDb trivia, though. According to David Thewlis, Marlon Brando described making the film as like trying to complete a crossword puzzle while falling down an elevator shaft. Like, I don't know. I love it when actors describe things like that. Like, I feel like there was another one with Sterling Hayden. I feel like there were a few choice descriptive things that like Sterling Hayden had to say about like Hollywood and making movies.
Mm-hmm.
Ron Perlman was in this.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, and Tamara Morrison too.
Who is that?
He's he's probably most known as he's Jango Fett and Boba Fett in Star Wars.
Oh, okay.
But he's in other stuff too. I mean, you might recognize his face. But he was the one in like the tux. Do you remember? He was kind of just, he had like the dreads or whatever. Yeah.
Oh, that was another thing about the movie is like because like there's like a range of like mutants that some of them are just like more animalistic, but like the ones that were on the island like they had like little suit jackets and tuxedos and were like they were like Dr. Moreau's like personal, like all of you are my children, but these ones are like more my children than you are. They're like they're house trained. But like David Thewlis shows up and he meets all of them and he's just like immediately like ew. Like ew, what is this? These are monsters. What's wrong with these guys? It made me think of I don't know if you thought of this, the Mighty Boosh. the mutants
Yes.
episode.
Yes. Yep. That was one of the things
We are
that it made me think of.
mutants.
Yeah.
Oh, double shame.
Yeah. I was thinking of this
We
the little
are
the rap.
the mutant people.
Yeah. Don't look at my
Which, like,
face.
similar makeup styles, I would say. Some of them.
Yeah, honestly, that was kind of I was thinking the same thing. And then the other another community reference that you saw if you read my review is the this better not awaken anything in me.
I did see that, yes. The manimals.
Yeah, the humanimals.
Yeah.
I also thought it was funny that we got David Thewlis in another like weirdo like sci-fi movie from this era.
Yeah.
Timeline recently.
Yeah, he was kind of like the guy to go to.
I guess so. I'm like,
He's good at playing those types of guys.
Yeah, I didn't even know like people like really. I mean, obviously he'd done stuff like over in the UK, but I didn't know that he was like one of those guys back then. You know?
Yeah.
I just kind of thought he was like a UK like indie actor.
Yeah. Yeah, up until like I would say the Harry Potter movies.
Right.
Then he's
exactly
a big name. I mean, I knew him from like The Big Lebowski. He plays like
Is he one
he's
of
like-
the nihilists?
no,
Or-
he's like Julianne Moore's like personal assistant guy. Like when he
okay.
goes to visit her for the first time, he's like talking on the phone and he's just like like laughing very
Okay.
obnoxiously.
Okay.
Yeah, he's great in The Big Lebowski. Yeah, there were apparently when David Thewlis arrived, Marlon Brando said to him, "Go home, David. This is not a good film to work on. It's cursed."
Oh, sweet.
So, maybe Marlon Brando had like a little bit of affection for David Thewlis. He's like, you shouldn't have come here. Like, just leave. This is a bad idea.
But also like the fact that like Marlon Brando was saying this and like the other stuff he said, like he needs to recognize that like he is at least part of the reason that it's going so shitty. Like it sounds like him being difficult just added so much like stress and other issues to the production. So it's like sure, yeah, you can it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy with him, it seemed like, where he like read the script or he got there and saw the costumes maybe and he was like, oh, this is lame. But then that was just like, this is lame, so I'm not going to care about it. And then because he doesn't care about it, his acting is bad and other stuff goes south because he delays the shooting and stuff. And then he's like, wow, this production is so shitty. You guys are running such a bad ship here and not, like, oh, maybe it's partly my fault.
It's like when someone that you're working with is like having a shitty day at work, so they do their job even worse, and then that bites them in the ass, and they're like, man, everything's just going wrong today. Like, even if I'm having a shitty day at work, I still like do my job well. I mean, when I worked in a kitchen and I was having a bad day, like, I would still make shit look as best as I can, because it's like some of my best served dishes are done out of spite. Like, never underestimate the power of spite. But I've never understood that. It's like, if I'm already in a bad mood, I'm not just going to intentionally sabotage everything to just like make it even worse, because then that just it just makes everything worse. So it's like him just, this set is cursed. It's like the Garfield looking at like, it's like a Garfield looking at a poster that has Garfield, but it's got like the circle and the slash through it. And then Garfield is thinking, I wonder who this is for. Oh, there was one more IMDb trivia thing that I wanted to share that made me laugh really hard. That sort of fuels the like Brando and Val Kilmer kind of hated each other bit. Yeah. This is awesome. Due to Marlon Brando's infamous large appetite and dislike of Val Kilmer on set, he would request and eat large amounts of cabbage an hour before a scene started, and would silently fart on purpose numerous times to leave what was described as a foul stench that would annoy Kilmer.
Oh my god.
So they'd be filming,
right.
and Marlon Brando's just letting out SBDs to piss off Val Kilmer. Also,
man.
did you know that there's no romantic subplot in the original story?
Yeah.
I mean, they cover that in the documentary, but like, they abruptly ended that in the movie.
Mhm.
I was
a lot of the characters
shocked.
get all the like Moreau just boom out halfway through. Val
He didn't
Kilmer
even have any like, because like, there's like that part where where like he gets shredded and he's like kind of laying in the hammock, and David Thewlis sees it. I thought at least he was gonna like go over, and maybe Dr. Moreau was like still kind of alive, and he would like be like, oh, the hubris of man, what hath God wrought? Like have some sort of like thing, but it's like, nope, that's a wrap for Brando. He's done.
Yeah. And then it was like, it seemed like Val Kilmer was gonna kind of like, oh, I'm taking over. I'm gonna be the leader of the island now. And then boom, like 15 minutes later or something, he's just off. After
he's hanging out in a Korn music video.
Yeah. After, for some reason, doing a fucking, like, that was maybe the wildest, like, Val Kilmer decision to me, is that he starts doing a, like, Marlon Brando impression.
Yes.
But Marlon Brando does not sound like Marlon Brando in this movie. He doesn't. I mean, I can't do it for shit, but he doesn't do the voice
like the
that he does,
Godfather
like, you know,
voice.
the Godfather, like On the Waterfront type stuff. But that's what Val Kilmer is doing. But in this, Marlon Brando just kind of talks like he talks like a little silly, but it's not the Brando voice.
Yeah,
but that's what Val Kilmer is doing. It's so weird. It's so weird that he decided to do that.
I give all my gifts to feed the poor. And though I give my body to be burned and have the charity, I'm nothing.
And apparently, if we're keeping score for Brando and Kilmer hate each other, Brando and Kilmer kind of begrudgingly respect each other. I guess Val Kilmer like didn't feel comfortable doing the impression until he asked Marlon Brando if it was okay.
Oh, well, okay. All right, okay. Still weird that he decided to do that.
It's a very bold choice.
But yeah, then he's dead, and then I was really surprised when the girl died. I was like, oh, for sure she's gonna live, right?
She's
like,
the love interest. Like,
yeah, this is the 90s. We don't kill off the love interest.
Yeah,
like that.
He's gonna like get her off the island, and they're gonna find a cure or whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, no.
I was really wondering if they were gonna do some reveal with her, because it's like, oh, some of his experiments have gone more successfully than others, and she's just like kind of a normal woman, and I was like, okay, but what's she got going on under there?
Yeah. Well, you know what Richard Stanley had planned for it, which sounded so great that she was gonna have like a full set of like 8 nipples or whatever, and then like he said like her pubes were gonna like cover her like her whole chest. Another little tidbit that I don't know if it's on the trivia or anything like that, but I watched the trailer before watching the movie, just to show Kalia to see, because she wasn't sure like if she was gonna want to watch it or whatever. And according to the trailer and nothing else I found, it's set in 2010.
I did see that. Okay,
you did see that somewhere? Yeah. It's like in the year 2010. Da, 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 da. And so then we watched the movie and like there's no allusion to that whatsoever.
Yeah, there's no reference to like any sort of Like I was just like, okay, it's present day.
Pretty much, yeah.
Because there's no like technology or
it's
anything. I guess other than like the
islands.
scientific experimentation. That it's like, oh, this is because it's far enough in the future. Like, oh, maybe this technology didn't exist, but they don't really even say anything. It looks like a normal lab or like a normal like operating room. There's nothing like whoa futuristic about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it more or less could have been set in like the 60s or nowadays, and you know, it'd be more or less believable.
To go on two legs. It's very hard. Perhaps 4 is better. Anyway.
I did like that line at the end. I was like, very true. Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, that's probably lifted directly from the book.
Yeah, that's another good little tidbit that could have been like ruminated on more or whatever.
Yeah, like the Ron Perlman character, I liked his sort of like, because he was kind of like the sayer, the sayer of the law.
Sayer of the law, yeah. That was
so he was, he almost seemed like a sort of like psychic character, like.
Something,
he was almost like a soothsayer, like an oracle, yeah. Like, you know, he was smarter than everyone else there.
Yeah. I do wish there was a way, like, I wish it kind of, maybe you got to see a little bit more about, like, why is there such a variety of like specimen or creatures? Like, why are some of them like that guy, like the sayer of the law? Why are some of them like the hyena man? Why are some of them like Aisa or whatever, the cat girl?
It's like, again, like you were saying about, you know, the monsters just kind of being around in broad daylight, making them less effective. Like they easily could have had, like, you know, a few around the house, the more dignified ones that are like able to speak. Like there's like that one scene where like the one is like reciting like Shakespeare or something like that, you know, just like, see, father, aren't you proud of me? I'm intelligent. I've been reading books. Like they could have had those. And then there could have been like, you know, the early experiments like that kind of live in the outskirts. And like that could have been the conflict, is like trying to subdue the masses. Like that's why he has the disciplinary like microchip dealio to like subdue them, because so it's like, and then it's like, oh, you only really see him on the tree line. You don't see him that often. And that makes him more scary because you don't really see the full picture. But this, they're just like walking around with AK-47s and camo pants. And it's just like, it's not really that scary or frightening. Or like, there's no like tension.
As far as like the movie or discussion goes, it's like you could just like continuously rattle off stuff like behind the scenes. This really is just like watch Lost Soul. It's great, really informative. Richard Stanley's kind of a character. He talks about asking his warlock friend to like cast a curse on the production.
That was awesome. That he's like, I have this meeting with Marlon Brando. Can you do anything? And his witchcraft guy is like, don't worry, I got you covered. And he like cut his hand open around like a pentagram or some shit. And then the meeting went over really well. So there's a bunch of shit like that. Bunch of like just crazy anecdotes. I don't know, we sort of alluded to it, but like he like didn't get on the plane that they bought for him. Like they bought him a plane ticket to be like, look, it's not working out, you're fired from the set, like you need to go. And like he just straight up didn't take the plane ticket, didn't leave, and they're like, okay. Like so they didn't know where he was, didn't know like how to get in contact with him. And then these two Australian guys like eventually find him. Like they like find him in like a cast iron bathtub or some shit.
Something
like they that. Find him in the jungle. Like he sort of becomes Colonel Kurtz himself. Like they find him in the jungle. And basically he convinces them to take him back to the set, but like they're like, look, you can't be yourself out here because like you could get in trouble for being back on the set. So he's like, don't worry, I'm gonna be a dog man. And so the director, who was fired, puts on a dog man mask and can be seen in the background during the movie. He snuck back onto the set, and then apparently like at the rap party he like takes the dog man helmet off.
Yeah,
because there's another part of the documentary where they're like taking breaks in between shoots, and it's like they're in Australia, it's probably like 100 degrees and they're all covered in like latex and prosthetic. And they're like, that's weird, that one guy won't take his dog mask off. And it's because it's Richard Stanley and he's deep undercover.
Yeah.
Just incredible anecdotes for like a movie that's just kind of boring, I guess. Just kind of like a mid creature movie that has some interesting eccentricities.
Yeah. But as far as this, we'll roll into scores if you're good with it. As far as this movie, The Island of Dr. Moreau, it's like I said at the top, it's very hard to nail down a score. And I do think it was proper judgment to put this in the normal cup because there are like elements, definite dud elements.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like it wouldn't feel right in there.
Yeah.
And again, it's like how much of it, like there's little things that kind of work. It's one of those where I'm just like not bored, but it's kind of just like movies of this time. If there's stuff going on, I'll be interested. Just partially nostalgia, partially like curiosity. I'm like stuck. I think I'm gonna lean with a 4, but I'm like between a 4 and a 5. I could go either way, but I think I'm gonna go with a 4. But definitely worth a watch paired with Lost Soul for sure. It's just a kind of fascinating piece of movie history. Yeah. But it's like the elements, like the Dr. Evil mini-me vibe with Marlon Brando and Nelson De La Rosa is like, that's awesome. But I'm like, is that a point for the movie or a point against it? I don't know. And there's so many like things like that in this movie where I'm like, where do I it's like, how does that really affect score? I don't know. But I'm settling on a 4, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah, I actually also landed on a 4 with this. Yeah, the I think the stuff that really shines through is like the elements that are probably like the leftover bits that they kept in from Richard Stanley's script, which are, adapted from the book with care and love and like earnest feelings. Like it's clear that he like felt a very strong attachment to the book and the subject matter. And I think those little bits of Richard Stanley's script that probably ended up making it through are what really makes this movie interesting, with the morality play and like God and man and beast and that kind of stuff. Again, the creature effects were decent. It feels weird to say that it was like competently shot, but there wasn't like any of those hallmarks of like bad cinematography or bad camera work. Like, the guy that they brought in, which like we didn't talk too much about, John Frankenheimer, he's like this old 50s dude. Like you look at him and it's like he did The Manchurian Candidate. Like he's got a pretty hefty filmography under his belt.
And that's literally why they hired him, because they were like, we just want somebody who's not Richard Stanley. We want somebody who has like made movies before and is reliable.
Yeah.
And that's what John Frankenheimer was.
Yeah. And then it turns out, man, you thought they didn't like Richard Stanley. They hated
Yeah.
John Frankenheimer.
Producers liked him because he got the job done, but everybody else hated him.
Yeah. So, yeah, like you said, it's there's bits there. It's not bad enough to be a dud, I don't think. Like I said, it's more of a curiosity piece. Watch it with the documentary. I'm probably gonna watch Val. I'm really curious to see that.
It's really good. Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm really interested in seeing like behind the scenes stuff that was filmed. Like there was that what is it called? It's like Jim and Me or Andy and Me or something like
the Jim Carrey one.
Like all of like the behind the scenes footage of him doing like the Andy Kaufman Man in the Moon shit. I don't know. You know, it's like it doesn't even matter what movie it is. I'd be curious to see like that sort of hand cam going around on the set, time capsule, just like
That's
filming
the best
and like
kind of like behind the scenes feature.
Yeah,
stuff.
That stuff always interests me. So like the fact that like Val Kilmer has some of that footage is kind of cool. Like I do want to see more of it. But like as a movie, it's an 80s movie that got made a decade too late. And it's just kind of mid as a movie, but as a curiosity, it's fascinating and oftentimes very, very funny.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I also the South Park character is based on Dr. Mephisto, and he has a little guy that follows him around. Kevin Mephisto, and it's just a little dude who dresses exactly like him.
Yeah. I did allude earlier, say that like, oh, I just watched shit this weekend, but that's not totally true because I watched a new movie, Dune Part 2, the Denis Villeneuve one, and man, it's been getting like people fucking adore this. I'm seeing like nothing but like 5 stars everywhere. Yeah. It's crazy, and I'm not there. I liked it. It was better than most of the things that I watched. Maybe everything I watched this weekend, really. but it didn't have very tough competition. I'll say that.
Yeah.
But there's this. It's just this. I think it's. I feel like this is a complaint that people have that I hear people say about Christopher Nolan movies. That I don't feel as much, but I definitely can understand. That my big hang up with this is I just feel like it's too cold and too disconnected for me to really get emotionally invested in the movie. And it's mostly with these Dune movies. To a lesser extent, Blade Runner 2049.
I was going to say Blade Runner 2049. That's kind of what prevented that movie from being like great for me, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I Blade Runner 2049 definitely has more going for it in that regard. And it's more thinky, right?
Sure.
It's more of a philosophical sci-fi.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate it for those things. Whereas this is more just like, it's like more artsy Star Wars, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's not like you're not kind of tackling any heady like topics, really. It's just Game of Thrones in space sort of thing. There's competing families. There's an emperor of like the galaxy sort of thing, and they're all kind of vying for control and betraying each other kind of thing. There's backstabbings and stuff like that. But I have not read the books. I'm definitely interested in them. There's like classics of the genre.
They're dense, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
because Chloe's read the first one. I think she's read a few of them because there's like Dune, and then there's like
Messiah. Children of Dune.
Yeah,
there's a few, but I think
I was going to
say
Son of Dune, which I don't think is a. I don't think.
No. Yeah, I think it's like a trilogy is like the main thing, but then there's been more books since then. Like his son, Frank Herbert's son, has like written some, but I'm like, I don't know if you really need to count those ones necessarily. Yeah, as far as like, I'm glad that as opposed to the first one, which came out when COVID lockdowns were still happening. So I just watched that one on HBO, which is how I think most people saw it. Really glad that I got to see this one in theaters. It's definitely one of those movies that you got to see in theaters. The spectacle scale of it is amazing. It's really, really impressive. Production-wise, production design, art design, everything is so cool looking. Everything looks so good in this movie. And the first one. It's the best thing about it is the visual aspect. It's the way that, like, you know, the vehicles are designed and like everything like makes sense and it makes it feel real. And it's very like incredibly impressive from that standpoint. There's some really cool shots. It's not shot by Deakins, and I did kind of feel like it was lacking something because of that. And I thought that before I saw the credits and realized that he didn't do it. So I would have said this anyways. I'm not just saying it because it's not him. But overall, like the general look of it is good. It's just not like when I think of like a movie that Deakins has shot, it's like I can picture specific shots in my brain that I'm like, oh, that's such a good shot. Like Blade Runner 2049 as an example. There's so many great shots from that movie. Yeah, and then like acting is all good. I enjoy the cast for the most part. But it's somewhat satisfying when it gets to the end because this is the end of the first book. So it feels a bit more resolved than.
Are they doing more?
I don't know. I think he maybe did this so that he could do more, but he could end it here. Okay. And, you know, like either way would work. And I could, you know, I would more or less be okay with either. Like it feels properly done for that. And it's nice because that was my biggest complaint with the first one is that like it really feels like half a book. It just kind of ends very abruptly, and it was nice that this one actually had a more of a conclusion.
Right.
And kind of much like Island of Dr. Moreau, there's the main bad guys are the Harkonnens, the House Harkonnen, and the leader Baron Harkonnen is played by Stellan Skarsgård. And if you know how he talks, he kind of has a very kind of gritty voice and a slight Swedish accent, which I'm not really doing the Swedish accent. But in this one, Austin Butler is introduced as his nephew, Feyd-Rautha, he's like kind of his understudy, and he's like, oh, if you take back this planet from, you know, Timothée Chalamet's character, if you defeat our enemies, I'll make you the emperor. And so he's like working with him to kind of become the leader after him, sort of thing. He's kind of doing a Stellan Skarsgård impression the whole time, which is kind of funny. Like Kilmer's Brando impression, which is funny because there's other, like Dave Bautista also plays another he plays another Harkonnen. He plays another one of Stellan Skarsgård's nephews, but he just talks like Dave Bautista. He talks normal.
Yeah.
But Austin Butler was like, no, I'm gonna
like, no, I'm gonna impress him, especially by doing a weird imitation of his voice.
Yeah. But yeah, ultimately a really like a fun watch in theaters. And I landed at a 7 with it, and that's primarily for that spectacle vibe. There's a lot of like nitpicks I have too. That was just with like some of it's I think source material too. So some of it's not really like you can like blame it on the movie itself. But overall a good time. But I just think I hope that if he's done with Dune now, he's done sci-fi since Arrival. And to me, all my favorite Villeneuve movies are pre-Arrival.
Give me Prisoners. Give me more of that.
Yep. Prisoners, Sicario. Have you seen this Sicario?
No, I bought it as like a blind buy when I went to like Second Chance or whatever. So I own a copy of it because I've heard it's really good.
Mm-hmm. It is. Yes. Like everything I've seen of his pre-Arrival is great. That's a shit where I'm like, this guy is someone to watch because like
he needs to go back to like his Memento. Like if we're following kinda. The Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, because I would say maybe it's because it's not his first movie, but what I would say is maybe his Memento, which is the one that he did before Prisoners, is called Incendie. That's probably my second favorite movie of his. It's awesome, and there are all these like very grim, drama kind of crime adjacent at least. Some more adjacent than others, but I'm just like you got your sci-fi stuff out of the way. Let's do another one of those. Let's do another one of those, please, because they're all solid. Because there's those. Enemy is another one that's from that period that's pretty sweet too. Which is kind of almost bordering on sci-fi actually, but it doesn't feel like a sci-fi. It's more like a, I don't even know. It's like that one's where like, it's Jake Gyllenhaal and he's like watching a movie or something and he sees like himself in the movie and like he's trying to see like he has like a doppelganger and he's like trying to connect with this person and see like it's more like a head trippy kind of weirdy thing where like body doubles and stuff like that. So I guess it's kind of sci-fi, but not in the sense that Blade Runner or Dune are by any means. But yeah, please go back to that stuff. Great, good stuff. But yeah, but Dune's still good.
Oh, Enemies is the one with the big spider.
Yeah,
I've seen that clip completely devoid of context where I'm like, that's creepy. Well, I don't know what that is.
If you see the movie, it's still kind of completely devoid of context because it kind of just like will cut to that and then cut away from it.
Sweet. I do. I do want to see that. Oh, Isabella Rossellini's in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's my review of Dune Part 2.
Sweet. Yeah, and then I saw some schlock. Did a movie marathon of the 50 Shades of Grey movies, which are... Because a while ago, we watched all of the Twilight movies for New Year's Eve. So we kind of were like, okay, well, what's the next series we're going to do? Why not watch the movies that are fan fiction that are Twilight fan fiction? And I gotta say, do you know the basic premise of them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Have you seen them? Have you seen any of them?
No, but I do more or less know.
It is wild how vanilla they are in terms of like the sex scenes. Because like the whole deal is that like she kind of gets, she's like interviewing this like sort of playboy billionaire Christian Grey, who, you know, she kind of gets into this like relationship with, very much like Edward and Bella from Twilight, where it's like he's like, I need you to stay away from me as much as you can, because if you don't, I'll need to have you all to myself. Like that sort of like, you need to like not be around me for your own protection because I'm going to like ravish you if like you stick around. So she sticks around obviously. And then he's like, obviously like, let's go into my playroom. And then like, that's the whole thing is like, he's got like whips, he's got handcuffs, he's got all sorts, you'd think it's supposed to be like, yeah, he's into like kink stuff. But all of the sex scenes are basically like he ties her up with handcuffs and then they have missionary sex. like that's but it's like these movies. I think I said it during the viewing. I was like, this is just stuff happening. It's like it's like a negative movie. It's like there's nothing going on. Like stuff is happening on the screen. And I'm like, I don't know what this is. Like any sort of tension that happens in these movies is also like instantly resolved. Like, oh, our friend gets kidnapped. Like it's almost like they forgot that they have to have like rising action and tension and like resolutions to these movies. Cause it's just like, they're like, oh shit. Yeah, we gotta have something to like, we gotta jangle the keys in front of their face a little bit to remind them like, oh yeah, these characters, like they have more to them going on than just like going on vacation to like scenic places and having like very boring sex with handcuffs. Dakota Johnson has negative ass. It's like she's not. I don't know.
Not surprising, I guess.
Oh God! What? Although what was fun is like when we were watching the first one, we were watching it pretending that Christian Grey was illiterate, and that made the movie made it much more funny. Because there's like one part where she's like, "How many other women have stayed here?" And I was like, "This many." Like, he's like, "Hey, can you change my email password? I don't know how to do it." Like, I don't know. We had to find stuff to make it. To like make it bearable, because otherwise it was just like completely just like 50 Shades of bland. It was boring as shit. With like terrible like Halsey pop songs. This movie also, like, I think each one featured like one per movie featured like a minor key down tempo pop song.
Yeah, of course.
Like I think the third one has Never Tear Us Apart by NXS on it.
Oh.
Which, like, I like that song a lot, like the NXS version.
I do like that song a lot, yeah. But was it like a cover? Like,
oh, yeah. It's like super like slow, like bass boosted. It's like, if you ask me, what you know is true. And it's just like, and she's just like, in like a, like he likes to like wrap his ties around her wrists and like tie her up or whatever. But it's just like there's okay, so one of the scenes where there's like some tension, and she does this twice in the movie where she asks him to like I want you to show me like the limits of, you know, like of what you're capable of. Like I feel like you've been holding back. And so he takes her into the room and he just like spanks her harder than normal. He's like, all right, I want you to count out loud each time I hit you. And he just like, you know, whap. And she's like, 1. And then she's like all traumatized and crying about it later. Oh, and it's like, you asked him, you wanted to know.
Right.
Like why? And it happens again. Like in one of the other movies where like she asks him to like reveal a part of himself to her, and then he does, and then she gets mad and is like, we can't be with each other.
Wow.
There's even like a whole subplot with Kim Basinger, who's in this.
Oh.
She's referred to as Mrs. Robinson.
Okay.
Because like, you know, like The Graduate.
Yeah.
She's like an older woman who like taught him about, like groomed him when he was like a 15-year-old and like taught him about kink.
Sweet.
And like and then like there's a part where like, you know, Dakota Johnson's character like freaks out and it's just like, you need to get out of here. And then like there's another scene where like the dude's mom overhears them talking about it. Like she didn't know that Kim Basinger's character was like doing that. So she's like excommunicated from the family. And then like one of the family members gets kidnapped. Like Kim Basinger's character goes away, and then like some other shit happens, and like a family member gets kidnapped, and like you almost think it's gonna be her, but it's some other dude. Like it's like, I don't know, just like all these opportunities to like make a story, like literally a story. Like that's how low the bar is, and just like nothing happens, and anything that does happen is resolved instantly, and it's, I don't know. They're so bad, and I feel like my life is worth a little bit less for watching that.
They sound fun from like you explaining it, but if the backing kind of statement is just they're boring, that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, you really have to be like pretty much riffing the entire time, because otherwise you're just like watching a music video with like people having sex every once in a while.
I had heard that too before, that it was like it's actually not that extreme, like the BDSM stuff, which I think is just so funny.
Yeah, like
it's written like it's the most extreme stuff, but it's just not.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're the movie's target audience, which is like a repressed 40-something Midwestern mom,
sure,
I bet that is pretty kinky. Where you're like, whoa, that's a little outside of like my comfort zone. There's like a scene where he has her wear like these like two little balls on a string. It's not even like anal beads. Like he just puts them inside of her, and then she goes to dinner and she's like, ooh, like that's it.
Oh, like they're still in her or whatever.
Yeah.
Come on.
And then there's like, he has a drawer of butt plugs, but
I was gonna say it should have been a butt plug.
Yeah. But she's like, what's a butt plug?
Oh, come on. It's in the name.
She's also a virgin, which
of course,
like turns him into like the wolf pounding the table in the Looney Tunes cartoon. Because like the whole thing is like she has to like sign this contract, because I guess like you need to sign an NDA before we do anything. But there's also this other shit in there where it's just like, you need to be, the submissive shall refer to the dominant as Sir or Mr. Gray only, like all these different clauses and contracts and shit like that. And then again, it's like the most like boring type of like sex toys you'd get at a Spencer's gift type stuff. So don't watch them. Don't do it.
All right.
And then True Detective.
Yeah.
Since I don't know if we kept that tangent in the episode with Andy, but we ended up talking about True Detective a little bit. I think when we had last talked about it, I had just finished the 4th episode, which is the one where Rust and Marty like kind of go through that neighborhood with Ginger, like his old like biker like guy that he knew when he was undercover. And then that episode really is kind of like a demarcation point, because the next 4 episodes are like they take, because the first 4 are like, it's sort of told from the perspective, it's like, I don't know, it's equal parts like 1995 and then 2012. And then after like the 4th episode, it starts to be more like current day Marty and Rust.
Isn't it like, it's like 3 timelines? It's like the first 4 episodes are primarily the 90s.
95, yeah.
And then
episode 5 is like 2002.
I was gonna say the next 2 episodes are like 2002, and then the last 2 are all present.
Like, yeah.
Because there's kind of like 3 acts, I guess.
Overall, I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
I only have like a few, like I guess like little nitpicks where, like, I kind of wish that like the conspiracy stuff beyond the one beyond the dude Errol Childress or whatever his name is, Goron from Barry.
Yeah.
Because like there were allusions to like the Tuttle family and like their churches, which like very much seemed like Epstein type shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess I wanted like a little bit more story with that, where they focused. I feel like they focused more on like this one individual guy, and not like the huge system that allowed him to be what he was. I don't know. That's like my only little nitpick, I guess, was that like those other storylines, it feels like once they were like, this is the guy we have to focus on, all those other storylines with like the Tuttle family and like the schools on the bayou where all the children and women went missing. It sort of just felt like a lot of that was casted to the wayside in service of like this one dude.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Do that.
But I thought that actor was great, who was portraying Errol.
Yeah, this is so crazy. What do you think about like the last two episodes, like how it was wrapped up in general, like other than that? Because that's like we were kind of alluding to when we talked to it before, that's
people think it like fell off.
I just remember that being in like the discussion that people like didn't like the present day stuff as much or whatever. But I thought that was like so like the end of like episode 7 where they like see each other, like they're on like that kind of that like country road, and
he like flashes him down with his car, and then like he walks up to the door and he's just like, Marty.
Yeah. and then they're just like, I don't remember how the conversation goes, but they're basically just like, okay, meet me back at my place. We're going to team up or whatever. And I was like, that's so fucking sick.
I like when that happened, I looked over at Chloe and I was like, the boys are back in town. like it's like, yes. Cause I knew they had to get back together at some point in time. Cause like I've seen images of like Rust with his long hair and ponytail and Marty like together. So it's like, there's no way that they're not going to be together again.
Yeah.
Although for an episode, Chloe was like, wait, is Rust the actual serial killer? Because they kind of the two detectives are kind of floating that, like trying to piece together like, hey, look, he was in the area when all this stuff happened. And it's like he made all of these things real and made all of the branch ways that the story went down. He made it happen. So like maybe he's the mastermind behind all of it. And then it's like, nah, no way.
Yeah. I feel like, do they float that by Marty? But Marty's like, no, that's stupid. I think there's like maybe some.
I feel like
that.
everyone gets pissed. Like even Marty's ex-wife is just like no, Rust is like a principled, like honorable dude. Like everyone's like, no, there's no possible way he could do this.
Yeah.
But you know, all the teasers kind of make you think it's that way. Cause it's like, you know, on HBO where we watched it, they had like, you know, on the next episode of True Detective, there was like a picture of Marty in his apartment. He had the flashlight and like the deer antlers were like silhouetted against the wall. So it's like, you're like, oh, is he? Could it be him? Like kind of like a Will Graham and Hannibal situation.
That's what I always thought of too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because those were on like at the same time.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I thought the last 2 episodes were pretty good. I mean, I didn't notice like any sort of like drop off for me of just this isn't as good. Although, I mean, I will say like the 1995 shit, them like the sort of like buddy cop-ish storyline of them like going around and like meeting all these like local characters and like honing in on who they need to. I mean, the 1995 stuff is really good.
Yeah.
But the new stuff was great.
Yeah. I like too that it almost kind of changes style a little bit as it jumps forward in time. Because like you said, it is like buddy cop movie, like more traditional, like we're going around and questioning people about this investigation and stuff. And then like you jump to the farther and farther in the future, and it's just like it's just different. It changes vibes, you know, especially like in the present. It's like they're kind of cops, kind of teaming up, but it's more just like renegade shit. And
yeah, like I like that Marty he's like, oh, he's just a private investigator. Like he's not a cop anymore.
Yeah.
Although I also did like the scene with their former guy. It was a very Tony Soprano move, taking him out on the boat.
Oh,
and then basically like he's like, oh, you don't have to tell me anything, but you are gonna have to tell him. And then it's like Rust with the gun. And it's like there's a handful of episodes of The Sopranos where like they'll take their friend out on the boat, and then it's like, you know, let's go for a boat ride, that kind of shit.
That's funny.
And then it made me think of Breaking Bad when after the boat ride, Rust is just like, and it's like, yeah, if anything happens to us in the next 48 hours, like either of us, like I got the best trained sniper. I don't know if he even says the Mississippi, but he's like, yeah, I got the best trained sniper who's just like gonna take you out. And it made me think of like Badger and Skinny Pete with the lasers at you know, in the end of Breaking Bad.
Gretchen,
but then this dude just like takes a bunch of shots at his car and like blows out his tires, and it's like, oh no, he actually is gonna shoot at him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I like how it almost turns into like a horror movie by the end too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like horror elements to it, or like horrifying elements, but like when they're, you know, chasing the dude like through those like that
Carcosa.
Weird like Carcosa. You're in Carcosa now. That part.
Come a little to the right, little priest.
It's very you know, Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
Like Buffalo Bill's basement and stuff. That's what I always think of.
With a little bit of Seven, because he's got like his dad chained up to the bed, and that made me think of like Sloth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, even in like the, you know, like the house, I feel like that's very not Texas Chainsaw, but like I guess Resident Evil 7.
Okay, which is
like,
kind of Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, in like the bayou, this big, you know, mansion in a parish, you know, and it's like, welcome to the family, like, you know, it's kind of like this familial thing. And then it's like that scene where like the two like guys that are on the new case pull up, and the guy's mowing the lawn, and he's like, oh yeah, you know, you got to go down to this road and then hang a right for a few miles, and then he's like, my family's been here for a long time. And like, that's such a good reveal also, that it was like, you saw him in episode 3. He was like mowing the lawn at the school. You just couldn't tell that his face was all scarred up. And then I wasn't like, I guess, paying close enough attention, but I guess even in that one scene when the two cops come by to ask him directions, he's mowing the lawn in a spiral shape.
Okay.
Which, like, I guess that was another thing that I feel like was, I guess that's just like the symbol of them. But I feel like, I guess my other nitpick is I feel like they like introduced a lot of imagery, like the deer antlers and like the spiral. And I don't know, I think they could have done more with that too a little bit. Like, again, I was interested in like the culty shit, the rich families of the town, like sacrificing kids kind of shit. Where it ultimately, you know, it was just more about this one guy, I feel like, at the end. Which, again, I mean, you know, it was good, but if I have to nitpick.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, no, that's fair. That's always, like, that can be a common thing with me, too, is, like, just needing a little bit, or, like, wanting to. Like, it's, like, because you're into the mystery, or, like
yeah, give me a few more episodes with that, yeah.
Yeah. But there's some elements, like maybe like the spiral thing, for instance, where in the end I kind of just chalked it up to like maybe it almost seems like this could be like this works in like the themes of the show too, is like maybe it doesn't mean anything on purpose. Maybe this guy's just fucking crazy. And like, he thinks it has significance and means all this stuff, but it doesn't. Because he's a psychopath. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. He's just a psychopath who murders kids and stuff. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also like the sort of it kind of felt like a misdirect with the whole Reggie Ledoux thing where you're like primed for him to be kind of like the big bad guy. And then Marty just blows him away instantly. It's pretty graphic too. That was
is that the one? Is that the guy that explodes?
No. So Reggie's the one that Rust gets. And then he kind of has him tied up, and then his cousin's like the bigger dude that comes out of a shed.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
And then like, yeah, Marty sees like the kids in like the truck bed.
Yeah.
And then
he just comes out and just
as soon as like
that's right.
He saw that, I was like, oh no. Well, there's your other like allusion to Seven with Kevin Spacey at the end.
Yeah,
he just
sure, yeah.
blows him away. But oh yeah, when his buddy runs away and then like he shoots him and then
There's,
he like hits,
they have like landmines.
Yeah, he hits like a trip mine and he explodes. And it's just like a pink mist in the air. I was like, damn, that is hardcore.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
but
so
yeah,
awesome.
you know, the first 3 or 4 episodes, you're really primed for this guy to be like the big bad. And it's like, you know, you see him walking around the property in like a gas mask and a machete, kind of like, yeah, like Walter White and his tidy whities. Like that's kind of, you're like, okay, this is like the big bad guy. And then he's dispatched immediately. And then you're like, okay, where does it go from here? Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think I'm going to watch the other seasons out of a morbid curiosity.
Give it a go. Let me know.
I feel like there's been a sort of renaissance for season 2.
Really?
I've seen some takes on Twitter where people are like, maybe it was because they didn't like the 4th season so much.
Oh, okay.
That they were like, maybe we were a little harsh on the 2nd season. But I have seen some reevaluations of the 2nd season. I watched the first episode of the 2nd season with some friends. Like they were super into like the 1st season of True Detective. I didn't watch it back then. But like they had a watch party and they were like coworkers. I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. I'll go and hang out. And I remember watching the first episode of season 2. And I remember just like hearing some of the dialogue and cringing. Like,
okay.
Oh, this is the show that you guys were like obsessed with. Like it was like there was like one line in particular that I'm thinking of where it's just like, I think
really
it's like a father-daughter, there's like father-daughter kind of thing.
Okay.
It's just one of those, I don't even remember specifically how it goes down, but I think she confronts her dad and he's like, I didn't want to lose, you know, a daughter or I didn't want to lose my friend or something. She's like, you just lost one. I don't know. It's just like the way there's like people talking like they know that they're like in a movie.
Yeah.
Like it's like, okay, I'm going to say this line. It's going to be an epic clapback and then it's going to be a scene transition and we're out of the scene. Cause otherwise I would have this epic clapback and then we both walk like in the same direction.
Silence.
Yeah. Awkward silence.
Yeah.
It's just like, I just remember the dialogue not being the greatest, but you know, maybe a fresh take, fresh look at it. Maybe it's better. Maybe it's different. I don't know. But it's one of those, like, I watched the first season, so now I kind of have a morbid curiosity to see the other stuff.
Other ones. Yeah. Well, yeah, Kalia was telling me that she kind of wanted to. We haven't seen. Yeah, like I said, I watched like half of the 2nd season, and then just kind of fell off out of like disinterest. It's by no means from memory. It's not like it's not season 4 of Community. It's not like that. It's just like when you have the first season, which is so good.
It sets the bar so high.
Yeah, exactly. We're like, I don't know. The 2nd season might be okay. I don't really know, but yeah, it's not that first season. But she apparently is kind of interested in the newest season. So if we end up watching that, I'll pull the trigger and check out the other ones. I kind of been wanting to see the third one. I heard that was good. I like Mahershala Ali.
Yeah,
The guy's the lead in that one.
And Nick Pizzoletto or whatever is like the executive producer writer on like at least seasons 2 and 3.
Okay.
Pizzolatto, I don't know how you say his name.
Pizzolatto, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Although apparently he was kind of catching some flack because he was shit talking the 4th season.
Oh, was he really? Ooh.
Yeah. Like being like, you can't blame me. Don't get mad at me about this.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know the 4th one was like especially bad. I don't know.
He's like executive producer on it, but he's
not so he's still producing. Okay.
But I don't think he has any other involvement with it other than that.
Right, okay. Huh.
I don't know. Some people seem to really love it, and some people are like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. I think it's kind of girl bossy. I think that's the part that people are latching onto for not liking.
Yeah.
I don't
know. Yeah, that'd be a bummer if that's the case. But the only person I know who watched it was James, and he seemed kind of like it varied. He said there was like a couple great episodes and like half like good to great and then half just mid.
Oh, okay.
So, and I'm like that's probably, I feel like that's in my head, that's what I imagine the later seasons being. Some good episodes, some episodes.
Yeah.
I remember they do another like long take like action scene in the 2nd season that was cool too. But really just like I remember like that and I was like, wow, that was really cool, but
everything
I
else
didn't like care
around
about
it.
anything else about
Yeah.
We have this, and then this is our last normal movie before a series of duds.
Dud month.
Yeah. Oh, tight. And I think it'll be a solid one to go out on.
Okay.
Before it's not another like Island of Dr. Moreau. I was like thinking when I pulled that, I was like, man, I'm preluding our dud month with a questionably dud movie with Dr. Moreau. This is not.
Okay. Okay.
We're going to watch from 2005, directed by Ang Lee, Brokeback Mountain. And I've been wanting to rewatch for a while.
Oh.
Have you ever seen it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's not going to be a happy episode.
No, it won't, but
that's exciting. I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember watching it, having known all of the jokes that were made about it when it was originally out. And then being like, this movie's really good. Why are you like, gay cowboys? I get it, but like, I was surprised at how affecting it was. So yeah, I'm excited to revisit that.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Sweet. So do it. Watch Brokeback Mountain before next week's episode if you don't want to be spoiled for it. These episodes come out every Wednesday at 7 p.m. EST on YouTube and Twitch in video form, as well as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more in audio form. We also have social pages on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And with all that said, I am your mini Marlin playing
piano
on his big piano.
Like Rizzo the Rat.
Yeah. TJ. And with me as always.
As always, I want to go to dog heaven. That's like his last line, so he gets blown away.
That's right. That's such a weird last line.
It's a very in Blue Velvet. It's a very Dennis Hopper.
Yeah.
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 And I'm Nick.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.